G'day Gymnastics skill seekers, and welcome back to another training vlog. So we're still on the move. We've left northern Queensland, and we've actually even left Queensland now. And we're making our way to South Australia for a house swap that we're going to be doing for 9 months. So last vlog I spoke to you, I was at my parents' place in a place called Serena. We stayed there for a few days, and some of the training videos that I will put up today were from my time there. And then we went to Noosa. And caught up with some friends there, caught up with Erdy, who is a guy I do a podcast with. So it was awesome to get together face to face and record an episode of the GST Junkies, all about free gains, talking about different elements of gymnastics training and maybe the elements that we're overlooking and what we might be missing to help us unlock certain skills. So it was a cool little podcast that we did together, and it was nice to catch up with him. I haven't seen him face to face for like 5 years, so it was nice to catch up, do a bit of training, eat a bit of food, and just sort of hang out in Noosa. Also caught up with some other friends there, and then we headed further south to Byron Bay, which is where we are now. So again, catching up with friends here. We're here for a few days, and then I've got the big drive ahead of me. So we're about at the halfway point now, and I've still got about 2,300 kilometers to go, which I plan to drive over a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and hopefully get us to the new destination. Anyway, that's enough about what's going on in the world. Let's talk about what's going on in training. So it's phase 3, and today I want to talk about day number 4 of the training phase. So I'm just training 4 days a week, so this is the 4th and final day. And it's all about flexibility this day. So it's a pure flexibility day that I usually do on a Sunday. It's a mix of sort of front split stuff, gymnastics, bridge stuff, and also pancake training. I start the session just like mobilizing a little bit. So I like to do some elephant walks. These are just a great little drill to improve pike flexibility, but also just sort of stretch out the hamstrings. And there's a little bit of hamstring work going on in this session, so just warming that up. I'm doing some standing front scales. They're like an end range twist. So the idea is to think about pulling the femur bone, the upper leg bone, into the back of the hip capsule as we sort of do this twist, and then using the hip flexors to lift the leg up, holding for 3 seconds, putting it back down, just doing 6 reps on each side here. So it's just activating the hip flexors and getting ready for the session to come. And then I'm just doing some light head to toe. So if you've been following the training vlog, I've spoken about like a slight hamstring strain on my right side, probably from a lot of the head to toe stuff we've been doing. So we're just backing off on that during this phase. And I'm just like keeping it a little bit maintained by doing, just 1 set, 45 pulses each side, but just not trying to push too deep here. And that's partly why I do the elephant walk at the start. I just want to loosen up those hamstrings a little bit before I dive into this pretty, advanced sort of hamstring stretch, even though I'm keeping it light. So that's just a little bit of a warm up. And then I'm going to move into like an elevated pigeon good morning. And I'm doing this weighted. So I still can't quite sit in the pigeon comfortably on the floor. So a big yoga block under the hip, and then just a little yoga block under that front knee to support it. And then just using the weight to move in and out of the repetitions. 5 to 10 kilos is what I've been experimenting with for this block. But yeah, it's a really nice sort of stretch on the glute, and you feel the glute working as you're doing this good morning. So 6 to 8 reps, and then just sort of hanging out for 20 seconds in the bottom of the elevated pigeon, just working on that stretch, trying to internally rotate that rear hip so I lengthen the glutes, okay? So pulling, the glute of the back leg away from the glute of the front leg to sort of stretch out those glute muscles. So it's just 3 rounds of that. It's just an A1 exercise of just continually swapping between left and right side. So then I move into my Bs, which are a supine leg lift block crush and a supine leg lift mechanical advantage. So the block crush one, the idea here is to keep the hips on the floor, lift the leg up straight, and then try and position a yoga block between the leg and the torso. And then I'm just actively trying to contract the hip flexor muscles and crush that block as hard as I possibly can. So this is a tough one. It's multiple repetitions. I'm doing sort of 3 reps of 10-second crushes on each side and just trying to really isolate as much of that hip flexor as I can. You'll see it's sort of very similar to like the standing leg lifts, but in this variation, gravity is a little bit more neutral. It's not really assisting or resisting, the core compression work, but it's just a great way to sort of teach the hips how to activate more of the hip flexor and maybe not so much focus on the abdominals here. So it's better isolation. But yeah, it's definitely something I think I need to continue to work on. I think my hip flexors need to get stronger to help pull me into my pike stretch or pull me into my pancake a little bit more. My hip flexors are a lot stronger than what they were 12 months ago, but we're still working to strengthen those. So yeah, it's 3 repetitions, 10-second holds on each side. And I'm just trying to think about sitting the hip down, like trying not to lift the hip too far off the floor, and really think about, again, drawing that femur bone into the back of the hip capsule and using those hip flexors as much as I can. Then we move into the supine leg lift mechanical advantage. The idea is we're keeping the leg straight, it's starting on the floor, we're lifting the leg up, and we're trying to close that angle between, the belly and the thigh. So it's a 3-second pause at the top of the repetition here. Obviously, it's got more range than the block crush, but yeah, I'd like to see my range be a little bit better than this, but it's harder than it looks. Not really too much momentum in the leg swing, and like I said, there's a 3-second pause at the top of each rep. And yeah, this really gets the hip flexors firing. Not cramping, which is a good sign, but I can definitely feel them working after sort of 10 reps with a 3-second hold on each side. So it's 3 rounds of this, 3 rounds of the block crush and 3 rounds of the leg lift. And yeah, this certainly fires up my hip flexors and gets them going. Now you would have seen this in an earlier session. I think it's in session 2. I'm doing a lot of this stuff, and virtually Sunday's just a repeat of a lot of the mobility stuff or flexibility stuff that I'm doing throughout the week. So it's just a chance to add extra volume here and just continue to work on my biggest limitation I feel with a lot of my gymnastics training, which is my flexibility. We move into the C's from here. It's a supine straddle knee extension. So if the hip flexors aren't dead enough already, let's do some more. So staying in that supine position, but now I'm putting the leg more in sort of a straddle, so abducting the hip a little bit. When the knee's bent, it allows me to pull the thigh closer to the torso, and then as I straighten the leg, that's going to really start to test hamstring flexibility and sort of quad strength and hip flexor strength. So we're lengthening the lever length here, and yeah, just trying to work on that position, which is going to help me, obviously with the pancake. So it's repetitions of this as well. We're doing sort of 8 repetitions, a 3-second hold at each time we straighten the leg. In the first set, I feel, the hamstring strain a little bit on my right side, and there is definitely a discrepancy here between the range of motion I have on the left and how easy the left feels in comparison to the right. I think my right hip flexor is probably a little bit weaker than my left hip flexor as well. So the combination of the slight hamstring strain and the weak hip flexor on that side makes me recognize, the difference between the two. So hopefully we can bring that right side up a little bit. It's definitely an area I need to focus on and work on. But yeah, that's a tough combination of so many supine leg lifts in this session. So it definitely leaves me feeling like the hip flexors are on fire by the end of that. That's being supersetted with the weighted pancake. So I'm doing good morning repetitions and holds here. So just using a 10 kilo weight plate on my back. So it's lighter than last phase where I was using a 20 kilo and just trying to do the holds. So I'm doing repetitions now. I don't feel the range is as deep as previously, but I think doing the repetitions is a good thing. It's getting some blood flow into those hamstrings. It's obviously allowing me to build a little bit more strength because it's a good morning exercise in a full range of motion, not just in the hold position. And I've got the hold at the end there as well. So I'm liking this because we've been doing a lot of holds in the pancake over the last few phases. So it's just good to mix it up and put some repetitions in there. And the combination of the knee extensions and the weighted pancake, they work well together. You've got one that's stretching the posterior chain and strengthening the anterior chain, and then the other one is pretty much doing the same. So they're supporting each other in this. So that's a good little superset. My last one here on today's session is the long lunge reach back, which is like a front splits / gymnastics bridge progression. That hamstring strain I could definitely feel on the long lunge, and the benefit of this variation with the long lunge is we're only keeping that front knee bent at 90 degrees. We're not extending that leg out a little bit more, which is when I start to straighten that leg, that's when I start to feel that sort of high hamstring position. So that works well with this one. The balance is a challenge with this one. So we're doing repetitions. We're moving in and out of the spinal extension here and just trying to sink into a deeper spinal extension as we go through the reps. 5 repetitions, and then on the last repetition, we're aiming for a 20-second hold here. I feel I've got pretty good range, and this is a really deep stretch on the anterior chain, so that from that back leg all the way up, all through the hip there, the anterior hip there, into the abdominals, and then just like even through the rib cage, through serratus and everything, you really start to sort of feel this. So once I probably get through the second set, the balance is warmed up, and obviously the third set's probably the best one, but just exploring this, playing with this, trying to get an idea of what improves the balance and how I can get more stable. Definitely a flat surface helps. I'm on the grass at my parents' place here, and it was definitely challenging. Had a few moments where I was like, whoa, wobbling over the shop or having to break sets up, but I worked my way through it and definitely like this stretch as a progression towards the front splits and a progression towards the gymnastics bridge. I'm supersetting that with the feet elevated bridge. So this has been a consistent part of my flexibility training for a number of phases now. What we're trying to work on here is we're trying to work more on the spinal extension part. So I'm trying to bring my hands as close as I can to my feet. And I'm really trying to think about activating all the muscles in my back and strengthening that thoracic arching. I'm not too focused on straightening the legs. I'm not too focused on opening the shoulder in this. Obviously I am doing it, but that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is more of the active arch. So maintaining that arch, doing sort of 6 to 8 repetitions on the push up, and then doing a 20-second hold on that last repetition there. I feel this has made a big difference in my gymnastics bridge. I've really enjoyed working on this, really sort of hard spinal extension, and feel that, when we go back to more of a gymnastics bridge where we're trying to straighten the legs and we're trying to open up the shoulders, there will be a noticeable difference in how that looks to how it looked before. So they're my C's. There's 3 sets of the long lunge reach back, and there's 3 sets of the gymnastics bridge feet elevated. And that's pretty much my session for today. So it's a mobility session. It takes me roughly sort of 60 minutes from start to finish. I really enjoy doing this on a Sunday. It just sort of finishes up the week quite well, and then it sets me up to start the new week. But thanks for watching. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and I'll definitely get back to you. I hope your gymnastics strength and flexibility training is going well, and until next time, happy training.